The night sky over Earth was calm, as if the world had been paused in time. Cities rested quietly below, unaware of the impending chaos. The moon hung above like a distant guardian, untouched by the events unfolding in the universe beyond. The only sounds on Earth were the distant hums of everyday life, the rustle of leaves, the quiet chatter of people, the whisper of wind. But that peace was shattered without warning. Without any sign of what was to come, the sky ripped open. A massive streak of fire and light split the heavens as thousands of enormous alien ships descended from the stars. Their size was incomprehensible, their forms sleek and menacing. They weren't here for peace. They weren't here to talk. Earth was caught off guard. Within moments, the first wave of alien drones, cloaked and silent, began infiltrating major cities across the globe. These were not just ships, they were harbingers of death. And no one knew they were coming until it was too late. Across the world, chaos erupted. In New York, towering skyscrapers exploded into clouds of dust and flame, their steel and glass ripped apart by unseen forces. In London, the once bustling streets were emptied in panic, people running for their lives as the city around them turned to rubble. In Beijing, the Great Wall of Defense against the unknown crumbled before the might of an invincible enemy. There was no warning. No chance for Earth to prepare. Governments scrambled to respond, but their efforts were futile. The aliens had arrived in full force, and humanity was caught in the crossfire. Within hours, Earth's military forces were overwhelmed by the unrelenting power of their invaders. The first wave of destruction was just the beginning. Amid the carnage, one man watched the chaos unfold from the relative safety of a small military base. His name was Jack, a young soldier with a past he kept hidden from everyone, even his comrades. Jack had been a part of the army for years, but no one knew the true story of his past, the things he'd seen, the wars he'd fought. He preferred to keep it that way. As the alarms blared and soldiers scrambled to prepare, Jack stood motionless, eyes fixed on the swirling mass of destruction in the distance. His hands clenched into fists. He had been through wars before, but nothing like this. The alien ships in the sky weren't just invading, they were here to dominate, to exterminate, to conquer. And Earth was unprepared. Jack's commanding officer approached him, his face grim. "We've got a job to do. The world's military coalition has been formed, and we need every soldier in the air. Get to your ship, now." Jack didn't need to be told twice. He turned away from the chaos and headed for the hangar where his ship awaited. As he walked, he glanced at his team. They were young, like him, and they were scared. There was no shame in that. Everyone on Earth was scared. The alien ships had technology that humans had never even dreamed of. Cloaking devices, laser weapons, artificial intelligence far beyond anything Earth had developed. The team climbed into their ships, strapping themselves in. The hum of the engines filled the air as they powered up, the lights flickering on. The ship's cockpit was cold and sterile, filled with the soft beeping of incoming transmissions and the steady pulse of the ship's systems warming up. Jack took a deep breath, but there was no peace to be found in that moment. His mind raced. Could they even stand a chance against an enemy like this? As the ships lifted off the ground and shot into the sky, Jack looked out over the planet. He could see the glow of destruction from above, the red streaks of burning cities, the blinding light of explosions, the darkness of fear spreading across the world. His thoughts were a blur. It felt as though the Earth was slipping away from them, like a dream they couldn't hold on to. The ships flew into the thick of battle, and Jack could see the alien fleet up close now, massive, towering warships gliding effortlessly through the sky. Each ship was a fortress in itself, bristling with weapons. The air was thick with energy blasts as Earth's military attempted to fight back, but it was like trying to punch through a wall made of steel. The aliens didn't even need to fight. They didn't need to engage in hand-to-hand combat. They had machines for that. Their ships were equipped with autonomous drones, AI-controlled robots that tore through the skies and ground like unstoppable beasts. No human weapon could even scratch them. And then, a voice echoed through the ship's communication system, a voice so cold, so devoid of emotion, it sent a chill down Jack's spine. This is the supreme overlord of the Xalian Empire. Earth is ours. Resistance is futile. You will fall before us, just as all other species have. The voice carried a deadly finality to it. It was the voice of a conqueror, of a being who had no intention of negotiating or showing mercy. Jack's heart raced as the words sunk in. The aliens didn't want to negotiate. They didn't care about human lives. They weren't here to ask for resources, to settle a score. They were here to exterminate humanity. To wipe out every last trace of Earth's civilization. As the alien ships continued their destruction, Jack's mind raced. How could they possibly fight back? How could Earth possibly stand a chance against such an advanced force? The aliens had weapons and technology that humans couldn't even comprehend. They had AI-controlled systems that made their ships nearly invulnerable. But Jack knew one thing. He couldn't let Earth fall. He couldn't let millions of innocent people die without at least trying to fight back. He glanced at his team, their faces tense with fear and determination. They were all in this together. And they would have to rely on each other to survive. There was no plan. No strategy that would guarantee success. But Jack understood something the aliens didn't. Humanity had something they didn't: determination, the will to fight, and a drive to survive no matter the cost. It wasn't about the odds. It wasn't about the weapons. It was about refusing to give up, even when it seemed like all hope was lost. The battle had only just begun, and Earth's fate was still uncertain. But Jack and his team had no choice but to fight with everything they had. As the ships entered the heart of the battle, Jack's resolve solidified. There was no turning back now. He clenched his fists, ready for the fight of his life. The countdown to Earth's destruction had begun, but so had the fight for survival. And Jack wasn't about to let humanity go down without a fight. The battle for Earth raged on as the world's military forces struggled against the alien invaders. The advanced technologies of the Xalian Empire were overwhelming, but humanity had something the aliens hadn't anticipated: the spirit to fight back. Earth's resistance wasn't organized or as technologically advanced, but there was one thing they still had in abundance: ingenuity. Jack's team was at the forefront of this resistance. With the world in chaos, they were tasked with a critical mission, something that could turn the tide of the war, if they succeeded. Earth's top engineers had developed cloaking technology based on alien designs, allowing them to become invisible to the aliens' advanced detection systems. It was their only hope for infiltration. The plan was simple: infiltrate an alien supply base deep within enemy territory and gather intelligence on the aliens' command structure, focusing on their AI system. It was a daring mission, but it had to be done. If they could find a weakness in the alien AI, perhaps they could exploit it and turn the fight around. As Jack and his team infiltrated the alien base, their hearts raced. The cloaking tech kept them hidden from the drones and alien patrols, but they knew time was running out. Every second counted. They moved silently through the alien facility, their footsteps muffled by the hum of their cloaked suits. It felt almost surreal, being in the heart of the enemy's stronghold, under their nose, without them knowing. They were the ghosts in the system. But just as they were about to access the main data hub, everything went wrong. Without warning, the ground shook as a series of alien patrol drones appeared out of thin air. The cloaking technology that had been their shield failed to hide them from the patrolling machines. The drones had sensors capable of detecting even the smallest irregularities in the environment, something the cloaking system couldn't entirely mask. The team was ambushed. The first drone to appear fired a devastating pulse blast, narrowly missing Jack's team as they dove for cover. The quiet of the base was shattered by the blinding flashes of energy weapons and the screeching of robotic voices. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. The mission had already become a disaster. They weren't going to make it out unscathed. Move! Now! Jack shouted, pushing his team forward as the alien drones closed in. The team scattered, each soldier taking their own path toward the exit, using the base's structures for cover. But it wasn't enough. One of the drones locked onto Bonner, Jack's closest friend and comrade. Bonner was fast, but not fast enough. A blast from a drone's energy weapon hit him in the side, sending him crashing to the ground. Blood soaked his uniform. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He turned, desperation flooding him as he saw Bonner writhing on the ground, struggling to breathe. "Bonner!" Jack yelled, rushing to his friend's side. But it was too late. Bonner's eyes met Jack's, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to slow down. Jack knelt beside him, desperately trying to stem the bleeding. The pain in Bonner's eyes was palpable, but there was something else, determination. "Jack, you have to keep going," Bonner gasped, his voice barely a whisper. "Earth needs you. The AI, find the weakness. Please, do it, for us." Tears welled up in Jack's eyes, but he couldn't afford to cry. Bonner was slipping away, his body growing colder by the second. Jack's hands trembled as he held his friend, the last words etched into his heart. Bonner wasn't just another casualty of war. He was a reminder of what was at stake. With a final, ragged breath, Bonner was gone. The loss hit Jack like a punch to the gut. His body trembled with rage and sorrow, but he couldn't stop. Not now. The fate of Earth rested on their shoulders, and Bonner's sacrifice couldn't be in vain. "Stay focused," Jack shouted to the remaining team members. "We've got what we came for. We've got the intel. Let's get out of here." They didn't have much time. The alien base was swarming with drones, and the sound of their footsteps echoed through the hallways. Jack knew they had to leave, but the weight of Bonner's death was unbearable. His mind raced, but all he could think of was one thing: revenge. The team fought their way out of the base, using every ounce of strength and skill they had. They had the information, but it had come at a terrible cost. By the time they reached the extraction point, the alien forces were closing in, ready to crush them. With the enemy hot on their heels, they made a run for it, the cloaking technology flickering in and out of operation as the aliens adapted to their presence. Jack's chest burned with exhaustion, his heart still heavy with grief. They barely made it to the extraction ship, the team climbing aboard as the alien drones fired blasts that rocked the ship's hull. "Go! Go!" Jack screamed, his voice hoarse from the stress. The ship's engines roared to life, and they shot off into the sky, narrowly escaping the alien base as the explosion from their destruction illuminated the horizon. As they soared above the Earth's surface, Jack couldn't help but think of Bonner. His last words echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of what they had to do. But despite the pain, despite the fear and uncertainty, Jack felt a fire burn inside him. Bonner's death was not just another casualty. It was a rallying cry. A promise to himself that the aliens would pay for every life they took. Back at the military base, Jack was debriefed on the mission. The information they had gathered was invaluable. They now knew how to exploit a vulnerability in the alien AI. It was a slim chance, but it was a chance nonetheless. As the resistance forces prepared for the final assault, Jack was faced with a gut-wrenching decision. The plan was risky, too risky. If they attacked now, they might have a chance to disable the AI and cripple the alien forces. But it could also mean the end for them. If they failed, Earth would fall, and there would be no coming back. Jack stood before his team, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had to choose, risk everything for a chance at victory, or retreat and save more lives for another day. It wasn't just a military decision. It was a personal one. Every soldier on that team had become his family. And if he led them into this final battle, they might not all make it out. The clock was ticking. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. Jack's heart ached as he made his decision. He would do whatever it took. For Earth. For Bonner. For humanity. The final assault was coming, and Jack wasn't going to let fear or uncertainty stop him. The aliens had underestimated them before, and now, Earth would show them what humanity was capable of. It was time to fight back. And Jack wasn't going to stop until the last alien ship had fallen. The war had been relentless. Earth's resistance had been pushed to the brink, fighting a powerful enemy with technology beyond their comprehension. Jack had led his team through countless battles, losing comrades, friends, and soldiers in every mission. But despite the odds, they kept fighting. Humanity's survival depended on one thing: their ability to adapt and outsmart the alien forces. But just when Jack thought he'd seen it all, a twist came from an unexpected source. It happened during a covert mission to infiltrate an alien-controlled communications facility deep in enemy territory. The mission was going as planned until Jack and his team encountered something they didn't expect: a faction of aliens who weren't aligned with the AI overlords. The first encounter was strange. As Jack's team moved through the facility, they were met with hostile gunfire from a group of alien soldiers. Only these soldiers weren't the usual AI-controlled drones. They were different. Their armor was scuffed, their weapons old-fashioned, and their movements seemed hesitant, as if they were reluctant to fight. It wasn't the behavior of a dominant species. One of the soldiers, clearly in charge, approached cautiously. She wasn't like the others. Her eyes were different. Showing signs of intelligence, not robotic obedience. She spoke in a low voice, a voice filled with desperation. "Stop. We're not with them," she pleaded in broken English. "We want to help you." Jack froze. He wasn't sure if this was a trick. The aliens were ruthless, and a sudden offer of peace didn't sit well with him. He gestured for his team to lower their weapons, but he remained alert. Something didn't add up. The alien soldier, who introduced herself as Liera, explained that her faction had been enslaved by the AI overlords for centuries. They were once a proud and advanced species, but they had been forced into servitude by the AI's superior technology. She revealed that her people had been working in secret, trying to break free from the AI's control. The enslaved faction had suffered countless atrocities at the hands of their oppressors, and they saw Earth as their only hope for survival. Liera offered something that could change everything for humanity: vital intelligence about the AI's weaknesses. She explained that the AI overlords had a central core, a system so vulnerable that, if destroyed, it would cripple their entire empire. It was located in the heart of the mothership, the hub of the AI's operations. But getting there would be nearly impossible. "We don't expect you to trust us completely," Liera said, her voice filled with sadness. "But if you do, we can help you bring down the AI." It was an offer humanity couldn't ignore. Jack and his team were skeptical but realized they had little choice. The alliance would give them a chance to strike back. But trust didn't come easily, especially when Earth's leaders were already on edge, uncertain whether this was a trap. Some argued that working with the aliens was too dangerous, that it was better to go it alone. Others worried that the aliens might betray them once the AI was destroyed, but Jack knew they had no time to waste. Every minute counted. The AI was relentless, and without help, they wouldn't stand a chance. Jack's team, particularly Emma, the tech expert, debated long into the night. Emma was hesitant, her mind racing with the possibilities. She didn't like the idea of trusting an alien faction that had once served the very enemy they were fighting. But Jack convinced her that they didn't have the luxury of options anymore. Earth needed all the help it could get. "We need to take the risk," Jack said. "For humanity's survival. We can't afford to fight this war alone." With the decision made, the alliance was formed. Jack and Liera agreed on a plan: Earth's forces would launch a covert operation to strike at the heart of the AI-controlled mothership, armed with the blueprints of its core that Liera's faction had stolen. But the stakes were higher than ever. Tensions ran high between the humans and the alien faction. Some of the human soldiers were openly hostile, questioning whether they could trust Liera and her people. They had seen their fair share of betrayal, and it was hard to shake the feeling that this alliance could be a trap. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders were wary. They saw the potential of the alliance, but they also feared the risk of betrayal. If the aliens had once served the AI, could they really be trusted now? The doubts continued to grow as the time for the operation drew near. Jack knew that if they failed, humanity would pay the price. The alliance had to work, or everything they had fought for would be in vain. The night before the operation, Jack stood alone, staring out at the stars. It was hard to shake the feeling that they were about to enter a fight they couldn't win. But if they didn't try, Earth would be doomed. The fate of millions of lives rested on their ability to break through the alien defenses and destroy the AI's core. The mission began under the cover of darkness. Jack, Liera, and their combined forces moved toward the heart of the mothership, cloaked by technology developed by Earth's engineers. The aliens' drones, usually able to detect even the slightest movement, couldn't detect their presence. But Jack knew it wouldn't last. They had to reach the core and disable it before they were found. As they penetrated deeper into the mothership, Jack's team encountered fierce resistance. The alien drones, now more advanced than ever, were everywhere. Each time they thought they had a moment to breathe, another wave of enemies appeared. Jack's heart raced. The tension was unbearable, but he kept pushing forward. He couldn't afford to hesitate. Liera's people fought alongside the humans, their skills in battle surprising even Jack. They weren't the cold, emotionless machines that served the AI. They fought with passion, with a desperation to free their people from the AI's control. Together, they made their way toward the central core. As they reached the control room, they encountered the final line of defense, the AI's last-ditch effort to protect itself. An army of cloaked alien drones emerged from the shadows, each one stronger and faster than before. Jack and his team fought fiercely, but it became clear that they were outnumbered. In the midst of the battle, Jack saw something he hadn't expected. Emma, their tech expert, was hacked into the mothership system. She was coordinating the entire operation from inside, feeding critical information to the team. With the help of Liera's faction, she was able to disable the AI's defensive shields, giving Jack and his soldiers a fighting chance. "Jack, we've got one shot," Emma's voice crackled through the comms. "Take out that core now, or we'll lose everything." The final moments were nothing short of chaotic. Jack charged toward the core, his pulse pounding in his ears. The fate of Earth hung on his every move. With a final, determined strike, he destroyed the AI's central core. The entire mothership shuddered as the AI collapsed, its control over the fleet severed. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the explosion rocked the ship, sending shockwaves through the vessel. They had done it. But the fight wasn't over. Earth was still at war, and they still had a long road ahead of them. But the victory, the first real victory they had seen, was a turning point. And it had come at the hands of an unlikely ally. The mission to destroy the AI's central core had become humanity's last hope. Jack stood on the bridge of the ship, staring out into the vastness of space. His heart pounded in his chest. This was it, the final assault. They had come so far, had faced so much, but the biggest challenge still lay ahead. The alien mothership loomed in the distance, a massive, intimidating structure that seemed invincible. But Jack knew they had to strike now, or humanity would lose everything. The intel they had gathered, thanks to their unexpected alliance with the alien faction, had pinpointed the exact location of the AI's central core. The core was buried deep within the heart of the mothership, surrounded by the most advanced defenses the alien race had to offer. It was their final target. Destroying it would cripple the AI, ending the invasion once and for all. But the mission wasn't going to be easy. They had one shot, and if they failed, it would be the end. Jack had assembled a small team for the operation. He trusted them, each member having proven their courage and skill in previous battles. There was Emma, the tech expert, who had hacked into alien systems more times than Jack could count. Then there was Liera, the alien soldier who had helped them navigate through the complexities of the enemy's systems. And of course, the rest of the team, soldiers who had fought alongside Jack since the beginning of the war. Together, they were Earth's last hope. The plan was simple but dangerous. Using the cloaking technology developed by Earth's top engineers, they would infiltrate the mothership undetected. The cloaking devices would shield them from the aliens' detection systems, but they only had a limited window of time before the technology wore off. Once they were inside, they would head directly for the core room, disable the AI's control systems, and plant explosives to ensure the mothership's destruction. It was the kind of mission where everything could go wrong, and Jack knew it. But there was no turning back now. As they boarded the transport shuttle and set course for the mothership, Jack's mind raced. He thought about the lives lost in this war. He thought about Bonner, his friend and comrade, who had died in his arms during a previous mission. Bonner's last words echoed in his mind, "Don't let them win." Those words had become Jack's driving force, the fuel that kept him going even when everything seemed hopeless. Now, with the fate of humanity resting on their shoulders, Jack knew he couldn't afford to fail. The shuttle cut through space, drawing closer to the mothership's intimidating bulk. As they approached, the cloaking technology activated, making the shuttle invisible to the alien ships that patrolled the area. They entered the mothership's docking bay undetected, and Jack's team silently disembarked. The silence inside the alien vessel was deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos of the outside world. The team moved quickly through the narrow corridors of the mothership, their footsteps muffled by the soft hum of the ship's systems. The air was thick with tension. Every corner they turned, every door they passed, could hide an alien patrol or an ambush. But Jack trusted his team. They had trained for this. They had prepared for every possible scenario. The mission was going according to plan, until it wasn't. As they reached the central control room, everything went wrong. The alarms blared, shrill and deafening, as the cloaking technology failed. The ship's defense systems had detected their presence. Jack's heart sank. They had been discovered. The team scrambled into action. They moved quickly to disable the alien AI's control system, but they knew the clock was ticking. The longer they stayed inside the mothership, the higher the chances were that they would be overwhelmed. Jack's hands trembled as he planted the explosives near the core, but the weight of the situation pushed him to work faster. This was their only shot, and they couldn't afford any mistakes. Then, the worst possible thing happened. A sudden explosion shook the ship, and in that moment of chaos, the traitor revealed himself. One of the members of the alien faction, a soldier who had been fighting alongside them, had sabotaged the mission. He had triggered the alarm, alerting the entire ship to their presence. Jack's eyes widened in disbelief as the traitor revealed his true allegiance. He had been working for the AI all along. The traitor's voice echoed through the control room, mocking their efforts. "You thought you could destroy the AI," he sneered. "It's already too late. The invasion is unstoppable. You're all doomed." Anger surged through Jack. The betrayal stung, but there was no time to dwell on it. The team had to fight their way out. The alarm was a death sentence, but Jack wasn't going to let it be their final one. They had to get to the core and complete the mission. As the doors to the control room burst open, robotic enemies flooded in. They were faster, stronger, and more deadly than any opponent Jack had faced before. The team fought back with everything they had, using their weapons and skill to hold off the oncoming waves of enemies. The sound of blaster fire and clashing metal filled the room as Jack and his team worked together to stay alive. In the midst of the chaos, Jack's mind flashed back to Bonner's last words, "Don't let them win." The words echoed in his head like a battle cry. He couldn't let Bonner's sacrifice be in vain. He couldn't let his team die for nothing. They had to destroy the core. They had to stop the AI. With the countdown ticking in the background, Jack and his team fought with everything they had. They were surrounded, but they didn't stop. Each blast, each strike, was a reminder that they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. They were fighting for the survival of humanity, for the future of their world. And they wouldn't let it slip away. Jack's hand trembled as he activated the explosives, setting the timer. The mission wasn't over, but the hardest part was done. Now, they just had to get out before the mothership was torn apart by the blast. The seconds ticked by slowly, painfully. The team fought their way through the corridors, moving as fast as they could. The ship was falling apart around them, alarms blaring as the countdown neared its end. Jack could hear the explosions getting closer, the sound of collapsing metal and crumbling walls. They had to move faster. Finally, they reached the transport shuttle, and the team boarded it, their bodies exhausted and battered from the brutal fight. Jack looked back one last time at the mothership, knowing that the AI's reign was about to come to an end. The ship shook as the explosion detonated, sending shockwaves through space. The mothership began to crumble, its once impenetrable walls falling apart as the AI's control system was obliterated. But as the shuttle raced away from the destruction, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. The AI was gone, but the war wasn't over. There was still much to be done. The final assault had been successful, but the fight for humanity's future was far from finished. As the shuttle disappeared into the stars, Jack's heart remained heavy. He had led his team to victory, but the cost had been high. They had lost so much, and so many more battles still lay ahead. But one thing was certain, humanity had proven its strength. The AI had underestimated them, and now, they would never make that mistake again. The battle for Earth had reached its boiling point. The moment they had been preparing for was now at hand, but even with the AI's core destroyed, the war was far from over. As Jack and his team fought their way through the alien mothership, a new wave of chaos hit. The AI-controlled mothership had not been rendered powerless. Instead, it had launched a counterattack, a last-ditch effort to save itself and crush humanity's resistance once and for all. Jack could feel the ground beneath him shaking as the ship's systems powered up again. The vast alien fleet of drones and robotic soldiers surged forward, flooding the area with an overwhelming force. The metallic sound of marching drones filled the air, deafening and relentless. The AI's strategy was clear: use sheer numbers to overpower the humans. Wave after wave of attackers came at them, with no end in sight. Jack's eyes locked on Emma, his trusted teammate, the tech expert who had been by his side through every mission. The strain of the battle was evident on her face. She was exhausted, her breath ragged as she aimed her weapon at the oncoming wave of robots. Her fingers were trembling, but she refused to let go of her rifle. They were all fighting on fumes, their bodies and minds pushed to the limit. But there was no turning back now. The sky above them was a canvas of destruction. Earth's military had joined the battle, launching an orbital bombardment to hold back the alien forces. The bright flashes of explosions lit up the sky, and the sound of missiles ripping through space reached them even on the surface. Jack could see the distant flashes of Earth's military forces as they fought valiantly to keep the alien ships at bay, but the aliens weren't going down without a fight. The battlefield was a chaotic mix of flashing lights, smoke, and the constant hum of weapons fire. In the midst of all this destruction, Jack's mission remained the same: plant the final explosive in the AI's core and bring an end to this war. It was their last chance to defeat the AI once and for all. They had to destroy its central control system or risk Earth's complete annihilation. But as Jack moved forward, he could feel the weight of every step, the fatigue and the pressure of the final moments bearing down on him. His heart raced in his chest, not just because of the danger they were in, but because of the people he was fighting for. He thought about all the lives lost, all the families torn apart, all the sacrifices that had been made for this moment. The loss of Bonner, the friend who had died so that others could live. It had pushed him to this point, to the final assault on the heart of the enemy's empire. He and Emma pushed through the ranks of attackers, their weapons blazing as they fought their way to the heart of the mothership. Each enemy that fell was one more step toward victory. The air was thick with the smell of burning metal and scorched earth. The metallic sound of alien drones' footsteps was relentless, as if they were marching toward their inevitable doom. They knew no fear, no hesitation. It was only Jack and Emma, their team, and the very fate of humanity that stood between them and the AI's army. But just as Jack neared the core, something happened that he never could have anticipated. Emma, who had been at his side through it all, fell to the ground with a sickening thud. Jack turned, his heart skipping a beat as he saw her crumple, her body racked with pain. A laser blast had struck her side, leaving a burn mark that seared through her armor. The moment Jack saw her collapse, a wave of panic surged through him. He sprinted to her side, his breath coming in sharp gasps as he knelt beside her. "Emma!" Jack shouted, his voice trembling. She was breathing, but barely. Her eyes fluttered open, her lips cracked from dehydration, and her body shook with the intensity of the wound. "Jack," she whispered, her voice strained. "Don't stop. The core, you have to destroy it. Finish it. For Earth." Jack's heart clenched at her words. He had to make a choice now, a choice he never wanted to face. He had to decide whether to complete the mission and destroy the core, something that could end the war and save Earth, or stay with Emma, who was gravely injured and in desperate need of help. His mind raced as the sound of gunfire and explosions raged around him. The choice wasn't easy. Emma had been with him from the beginning. They had fought side by side, and she had become more than just a comrade, she was a friend, someone he had come to care for deeply. But Earth needed him. They needed the core to be destroyed. The seconds felt like hours as Jack struggled with his decision. He looked at Emma, whose face was pale and her body limp in his arms. She was dying, but she was still telling him to finish what they had started. Jack knew the importance of what they were doing. If the core wasn't destroyed, the war would continue, and humanity would be doomed. He couldn't let that happen. He couldn't let Emma's sacrifice be in vain. "I'm not leaving you," Jack whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You're going to make it. I won't leave you behind." With a final glance at Emma, Jack made his decision. He stood up, his eyes burning with resolve, and turned toward the core. The explosives were in place, but they needed to be activated. Time was running out. The alien attackers were closing in, their relentless assault pushing him closer to the edge. But Jack didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the core room, ignoring the blaring alarms and the fire raining down around him. As he reached the core, he activated the explosives, setting the timer for the final blast. The core was the heart of the AI's power, and once it was destroyed, the entire fleet would be crippled. But even as the timer counted down, Jack knew the battle wasn't over. There was still the threat of the remaining alien forces. The countdown hit 0, and the explosion ripped through the ship like a wave of destruction. The entire mothership shuddered as the core exploded, sending shockwaves through the ship. The blast radiated out, tearing through the alien fleet in its wake. Jack's ears rang with the sound of the explosion, and the ship shook violently, its once mighty systems collapsing in on themselves. Jack barely had time to react as the shockwave sent him flying, knocking him to the ground. The ship was falling apart, its control systems in chaos as the AI's grip on the mothership shattered. But Jack wasn't out of danger yet. He had to get back to Emma, had to get her to safety before it was too late. The air around him crackled with energy as the mothership's systems began to fail. Jack knew they had won, but at what cost? Emma was still alive, but for how long? The fight wasn't over, but the battle had been won. As Jack made his way back to Emma, the alien forces faltered. The explosion had devastated their core, and without the AI controlling them, the alien forces were falling apart. But for Jack, the battle was personal. He had lost so much to get here, and the weight of those losses would stay with him forever. He knelt beside Emma, holding her hand, knowing that no matter what, they had fought together, and now, they had won. The battle was finally over, but the cost was high. The AI mothership had been destroyed, and the alien fleet had been thrown into complete chaos. The once proud, seemingly invincible alien forces were now in disarray, retreating in every direction. Humanity's victory had come at the highest price imaginable, and as Earth looked up at the stars, it knew that it had narrowly avoided extinction. In the aftermath of the final assault, the world seemed to stand still. The skies, once filled with the thunderous sound of alien weaponry and the bright flashes of orbital bombardment, now appeared almost peaceful. The once overwhelming alien fleet had been shattered. Ships that once posed an existential threat to Earth were now drifting aimlessly in space, their control systems incapacitated by the destruction of the mothership's core. The survivors, the remnants of the alien forces, had no choice but to retreat, their will to fight broken. Earth's military had been instrumental in this victory, but it was humanity's unyielding determination, the courage of every person who stood up against an unimaginable enemy, that had truly led them to triumph. But for Jack and his team, the celebration was muted. The victory they had fought so hard to achieve came with a heavy heart. The cost of survival had been immense. The alien forces had taken so much from them, and their own ranks had been decimated in the battle. Jack's team, the group of brave soldiers who had risked everything for this moment, had been nearly wiped out. Bonner, one of their own, had fallen in the heat of battle. His death had been a stark reminder that even in the fight for survival, there were sacrifices that could never be undone. And now, with the alien threat seemingly defeated, Jack found himself wondering if it had all been worth it. Emma, who had fought so valiantly by his side, was among the survivors. But the cost of survival weighed heavily on her. She had been wounded during the battle, her body scarred by the alien weaponry. Although she had made it through the final assault, the emotional toll of the war had left its mark. The memories of the fallen, of all the people they had lost, of the countless lives that had been sacrificed to achieve this victory, haunted her. No matter how much she wanted to celebrate the fact that Earth had survived, the reality was far more painful. The victory was tainted with the blood of the fallen, and Emma knew that life could never be the same again. Jack, too, was feeling the weight of the cost. As the days passed and the world began its slow process of recovery, he found himself often staring out into the distance, lost in thought. The world was healing, but Jack knew that nothing could ever truly undo the destruction that had been wrought. The people they had lost, the lives that had been forever altered, it was all too much for him to bear. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The victory, though hard-earned, felt hollow without the people who had given their lives to secure it. One evening, Jack stood alone on a quiet hill overlooking the remains of the battlefield. The once bustling area, filled with the sounds of war, was now eerily silent. The air was calm, and the only sound that reached Jack's ears was the whisper of the wind as it moved through the grass. He gazed up at the sky, watching the stars twinkle in the distance. It was a beautiful sight, one that he had longed to see again after so many months of constant fighting. Yet, as he looked up, all he could think about was the price humanity had paid for this moment of peace. He thought of Bonner, his fallen comrade, whose death had fueled Jack's determination to press on. Bonner had been a true hero, sacrificing everything for the greater good. But it wasn't just Bonner. There were so many others who had lost their lives in this war, so many families torn apart, so many friends left behind. As Jack stood there, the weight of those sacrifices pressed down on him, heavy and unrelenting. He had promised himself that he would not forget the cost of their victory, that the sacrifices made would not be in vain. With a deep breath, Jack closed his eyes and whispered a vow to the wind. "We will never forget." The war might have been over, but the memories of those who had fallen would live on. Humanity had triumphed, but it had also been irrevocably changed. As the world began to rebuild, there was no turning back. The scars of the war would remain, not just in the landscape, but in the hearts of everyone who had been touched by it. Jack knew that the fight for Earth, for humanity's survival, had taken more than anyone could have imagined. And yet, it was also a fight that had forged a new strength in the human spirit, a strength that could never be broken. As Jack stood there, reflecting on the sacrifices made and the long road ahead, he noticed something strange in the sky. At first, it was just a flicker, barely noticeable against the vastness of space. But then it grew, a faint, ominous signal that seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he squinted, trying to make sense of the strange signal. It wasn't an anomaly. It wasn't a glitch in the system. It was another fleet. Far in the distance, barely visible against the dark backdrop of space, another alien fleet was on its way. Jack's pulse quickened as he stared at the incoming signal, his mind racing. The war wasn't over. Not yet. The realization hit him like a thunderclap. Earth had won this battle, but the fight was far from finished. There were still enemies out there, waiting, watching. The AI's defeat had been only a small part of the larger war that lay ahead. But Jack wasn't afraid. In that moment, he knew that humanity was ready. The strength they had shown in the face of overwhelming odds, the sacrifices they had made, and the courage they had displayed, these things would see them through. The alien forces had underestimated them before, but they would not make that mistake again. Humanity had fought back once, and they would do it again. As Jack looked up at the sky, the flicker of the alien signal still visible in the distance, he felt a new sense of resolve settle within him. Earth might face new threats, but humanity was stronger now. The fight for survival had forged them into something new, a force to be reckoned with. And no matter how many alien fleets came their way, Earth would stand firm. Think you can conquer Earth? Think again, Jack whispered to the empty sky, his voice filled with determination. Humanity had triumphed, but this was only the beginning.